Dickinson.
Sorry.
Commissioner Gentini, Commissioner Feinstone, and did I see anybody else? That's it.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay. So, so I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it. Oh,
Judy was second. All right, so item 3, public input. The public's invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the commission that is relevant to the scope and authority of the city of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. The commission may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input to ensure that each individual presentation is heard. The commission may uniformly impose limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time the commission takes up each specific agenda item. So is there anybody from the public at this time that would like to address the commission?
I don't see any hands.
No hands, okay. Let's move on to approve the minutes from October and November. Did everybody have a chance to look over those? Did you see anything that stood out that needs to be changed?
No, I did not.
Okay, I saw just a couple typos, but I don't think that's worth having to change, so. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous 2 months.
I'll second it.
Okay, Judy seconds. All right, item 5, observe and report and community surveillance program status and report. Do we have anything to report from the observe and report? Kind of been cold and slow out there. I don't know if we're doing many walking groups lately. Or...
We have not been. It's been too dark and cold in the morning. But I'm hoping, within the next month to 6 weeks, we can start that up again.
Okay. We had talked about also having another little training here in the spring.
Okay.
At City Hall, or I mean at the town square.
Mhm.
So maybe we could start that after we have a new round of training.
Yeah, and it may be that people would like to do it in the evening instead. We could try that. Maybe that will work better. So.
Okay. Let's try to promote that as the weather gets better here.
Okay. In about maybe like the end of this month, I'll start posting on our Facebook page and trying to find out if people have any interest in this and what their days and times are like if they have a preference.
That would be great. Yeah. The community surveillance program, I've put up a lot of cameras and got a lot of pretty much everything installed to this point. I don't know where we are. We were talking about possibly having some more money to do another round. Something that I found in this process was some of the cameras like the blink system and the ring systems are not like continuous monitoring. They're just mainly a motion sensor comes on and triggers the camera and it takes a little snippet of time. When you install them close to a road or somewhere that gets a lot of activity, those 2-year batteries pretty much are dead in like a month, is what I've been finding out from people. So they're meant really mainly for like a doorbell or your backyard or something where it doesn't get a lot of traffic. It's just a motion sensor type thing. If we were to do it in the future, I would recommend more continuous monitoring type systems like the Lorax that we did 2 of those in town. They're great cameras. I just finished setting one up on the Stardos building, so they've got 8 cameras all the way around that place. That's just my recommendation. If they're a little more expensive, but I think we get more out of it, because if the sheriff comes to somebody and says, hey, dude, you got footage for 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, of maybe a car driving by this road. If it didn't trigger the motion sensor, then they're not going to have footage on it, you know. So that's just one of the things I found from the surveillance program.
Hey, Jason, what about the ones with the rechargeable batteries?
Like the ring systems, or
Yes, yes.
They-
Do you think that would be, or are people installing them in places that it's just not convenient to do that once a month?
it just depends, because you got to install them high enough up where people aren't going to mess with them. And so, you know, when you go to your phone, you see this camera's not responding, then it's probably a battery's out or something. You got to pull it down and charge it. But I mean, it's a possibility. Like, but it's still not. It's hard to say unless you're like, I don't know. I think for the purposes of what the city was looking for, is getting some footage, you know, to use at any time and in key locations, those type of systems would be better. If we're just trying to help the community out, you know, protect their property, and then the rings and the blink systems were fine.
I remember one of them had a solar option, but I don't remember which brand it was. And I don't know if that would be useful either. I guess it depends on, you know.
I
where
think
they're-
that's the ring system.
Okay,
Yeah, they have the solar option too, but I'm not sure. I haven't got any feedback. We did install one or two ring systems in town, and I didn't get any feedback on those. I haven't heard anything, so maybe it's just going well.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that we have is if you can't hardwire the systems, then you really are at the mercy of some type of battery. And we have that even in some of our locations in the city where we didn't have the capacity to, you know, run wiring and everything or have an outlet. So we have battery operated systems, and they are more work. But like I said, the trade-off is that you need a hardwired system, and those start to become kind of costly, and especially depending on, you know, what kind of you know, electrical system you have in your house, whether you have exterior outlets or you have at least an attic space where you could run some wiring around and hook in those cameras. It's a bit of a trade-off. So it's been a limiting factor for sure. But you know, it is what it is at this point.
The Lorax one I just put in was, you know, you just plug it into the wall, and then all the cords go around to all the cameras on the outside, but you have to hook it up to, you know, you know,
DVR
your
system.
DVR system, or the TV, the smart TV or something. So I just put it on the HDMI number 1 or 2 on the TV, so they can just switch channels if they need to. But
Right. I think it's more of a matter of the wiring for the cameras themselves, you know, because not everyone wants to have wiring running around their ceiling, or, you know, or on the outside of their house, and how, you know, so
it's a lot of work. It is.
Yeah.
But I haven't, you know, that's the only feedback I've been getting back on some of those other motion sensor type systems, is the batteries aren't holding up on them, and they're not, you know, they only will get footage if it happens to trigger them. So
okay. Thanks for that information.
Jason, you said that you put up 8 new cameras around Stardo's building. Is there any other like new camera locations you can tell us about?
they're just all randomly all throughout town, like from basically the laundromat all the way to you know, just around. I don't know if should state exactly where every one of them is at, but you know, we have them throughout the town. I think we put up 8 cameras, 8 to 12, I think.
8 to 12 around town.
Yeah,
Okay.
major intersections and things like that. So
Yeah, and we are looking at budgeting for some additional systems, and being a bit more targeted. You know, I mean, of course, it'd be great if you could have it at the roundabout and you could have it at all the major intersections. The problem is what we've all, you know, talked about in the past is that, you need some way to facilitate those. So you either need it to be on a house so that they can run on the Wi-Fi, or you have to be able to have some type of system that's recording to you, or then you have power. And then it's like, you can't just go mount them on random telephone poles around town. Like, you know, people are like, well, let's put one on this, you know, it's like, it's just not going to work unless you have a real advanced, you know, system. You know, like a lot of the bigger cities do have those systems, but they have those capacities as well. So we're trying to find different solutions, and, you know, we're going to be piecing it together. But I think as we continue to put, you know, more systems online, we get more lighting and things, you know, I mean, we're never going to be able to stop, you know, everything, but, you know, we're trying to do as much as we can. And we have to empower residents to do that as well. It's not up to the city to, you know, manage this for each, you know, residential property. We're doing what we can at the level that we can, but it's also up to the property owners to, you know, take those initiatives as well.
Yeah, and I did look into trying to get a camera on the levee. But, you know, the problem is you have to have a Wi-Fi source, and unless, you know, something really powerful in town comes online, which possibly could happen in the future, but you know, with possibly Del Arte's system or whatever, they're planning. It's not in the city's capacity. It's too expensive. It'd be similar to like what PG&E has all throughout. You know, they have them all over the place out in the wildlands and stuff. But I think they're satellite type cameras that are very expensive. So. So that's yeah, like I said, we can't just go put them on a telephone pole. That was the other issue, is PG&E doesn't like you to just put them on a telephone pole. So anyway, all right. Was there any more any questions from the public on the camera program? Or the Observant report? I see a hand from Julia.
Hi there. Sorry, a question, at least in regards to the levy. I know that there's not a way to really do a video, but what about setting up something like a game cam or something like that? It's a little easier to control. It's not going to be constant, but it would go like on a motion control, so the battery should last a little longer. And it's just a thought. I know that's not part of the regular program that we've been looking at and you know, trying to institute, but for that particular area only is what I was thinking about.
Yeah, we haven't looked into game cameras. I mean, it's just going to take, I mean, they do take video. Some of them will take short videos, but and the purpose would be just to monitor who's out there, or what would the purpose of the game cameras be?
It would just be for a safety purpose. So if something did happen, at least there might be some documentation. I mean, we have had some incidents there in the last 8 months that probably it might have been helpful to have a game cam out there. So I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility if there are more instances of anything out that way, so people feel safer. It's really, I think, just making people comfortable.
Yeah, it's just having a place to put it where it's not going to get messed with, or people can see it. You know, there's not a lot of locations.
Sorry. And we do use game cameras in some of our properties for the city, mostly, you know, our water systems. The problem with game cameras is that they record to themselves. And like Jason said, if you can find a place where you can hide it, that's great. But it's, you know, if you can't use it as really a deterrent, because you don't want people to know where they're at, because then they just take them and there's no secondary recording. So they literally, you know, if they see them and they know it, they'll just take it and then you're out. So that's been one of the problems with using them as a kind of a, hey, we're watching you type situation, is that game cameras specifically are, you know, you don't want anyone to know where they're at.
Right. Like I said, I was just an option that, I wasn't sure if, because that wasn't something that was really discussed too much, but in
Yeah.
the consideration of how it's a little bit more of a sort of rural area to watch, that I don't know if we have to let people know about it, but if it's out there, just in case damage or stolen property or, those things that do occasionally happen out that way. So just putting it out there. It's not.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think they definitely have, their place and purpose, and they're definitely a great resource for those areas.
Okay, that was it.
All right, thank you. Oh. Well, okay. I'm trying to see. Oh, okay. So we'll move on to item number 6, an update from the Red Cross. See what's going on with the Red Cross and Andrew.
Good evening, good afternoon or good evening. I think we're at the good evening stage of the day now. That's kind of how my day has gone. Yeah, last 2 months have been really busy. Post windstorm in Willow Creek, the community is, taking the next steps they need to recover. I can speak to that if there is an interest in it, especially as it pertains to your community. I have no problem discussing that further if there's interest, but from the Red Cross side, we respond, what we do falls under immediate needs. And so as that community recovers, we tend to phase out of the response and let community organizations and other entities step into that space. So we've made that transition. We're still in communication with some of the leadership from the different groups out there, offering guidance and whatnot. But we've had to move on and get ready for the next big disaster. We're looking at fire season already. So in order to get ready for that, we've already hosted a series of training in Trinity County. We've started with our disaster action team training, which is the local responders. And then we followed up with shelter training. I'm getting ready to do that again next weekend in Del Norte. We'll do a weekend of disaster action team training. We'll give everybody a weekend off so I can see my family.
Yeah,
Then
I can't get enough volume out of this.
And then we come back the next week doing shelter training. And so I have not identified a location for Humboldt County for the shelter training yet. Ideally, Willow Creek still has a lot of momentum behind it, and I'd love to go back out there and host some training. And I think we would do that anyways, but I'm looking for a location to do some formal sheltering training. And if there's interest from Blue Lake, I would be willing to do it there. If there's interest, we could set a time and coordinate that. I currently only have one volunteer in all of Blue Lake. So it'd be nice to get out there and train some folks, even if it's just the CERT folks, is a kind of revisiting the shelter training. But that's something I'd be open to. And so, yeah, that's the biggest thing we're looking at right now. The thing that's really limiting our capacity to grow our team is a lack of educators. And to meet that, on March 26th, we're actually I'm sending 4 of my lead volunteers to basic instructor training in Mendocino. There's a class being hosted there. And so we'll have more educators within our team. And so we really don't have to be beholden to Sacramento to do the training. We could start training more people with more frequency in our area. So I'm excited about that. We are now allowed to do in-person training. So all the training that I've been talking about is actually done in person. I know people are Zoomed as we sit here on a Zoom meeting for for good reasons. We're absolutely allowed to meet in small groups to do training in person again, as long as we follow social distancing guidelines and we're all masked up. So we're starting to meet with more receptance to doing that. So it's been good to get back out in the community and host that training again. To that end, preparedness education is something that we are able to do if only I had preparedness educators. So while trying to figure out, getting our workforce ready to, respond to next year's wildfire season, or a tsunami, because we had a tsunami alert a little while ago, and that highlighted some vulnerabilities within some of our communities. For example, we didn't get called, so that was bad. I highlight that because our leadership's all based out of Sacramento. So every year it's wildfire season, and it's very important. But we also do, our communities are also faced with, seasonal flooding. We have windstorms, we have tsunamis and earthquakes that we have to be ready for. So in the cycle of getting ready for fire season, I feel as part of my job is to advocate to my leadership that it's not the only thing we focus on. Right now, our system's really built on getting a lot of our trained volunteers to Sacramento and then send them further into where the wildfires are, and turning that around and bringing people to us has been a challenge. Getting folks from the rest of the national organizations. So, Red Cross volunteers from Miami and Houston and Providence, they'll come, they'll get here eventually. But it takes a little while to figure that out because this is a new area to the Sacramento headquarters. We just transitioned leadership, reorganized our organization. Sounds redundant now that I say it out loud. So I apologize. But to do that, I keep having to advocate that, hey, getting folks to us in a timely fashion is still a concern that I have. And the way that I'm addressing that is by recruiting and training folks locally. That's the biggest thing that's going to make that difference, especially in the first initial hours. So that's really what I'm focused on right now, is getting more volunteers over the organization. Last count, we had 71 volunteers between all 3 counties. So we've seen some significant growth from last fire season. But getting folks trained has been a struggle because it's online training, and it's self-paced. So the fact that we can do in-person training again, I'm really excited about that. So if there's any interest, folks can reach out to me. I don't have a way of putting my contact information here, so I'll just read it out. It is andrew.bogar, B-O-G-A-R, at redcross.org, and reach out to me, and I'll talk about taking those next steps and joining us if you're interested. And if anyone's interested in shelter training, say through the CERT team, reach out to me as well, and I would be happy to coordinate that activity. Also, if anyone would like to get me in contact with folks at the school, I would love to have a conversation about them, about using the school as a shelter, or at least hosting the shelter training at that site. The Grange is a fine location. Capacity-wise, it's small compared to and when we have a larger disaster, anything over 10 clients, and we start really struggling for space at the Grange, especially with COVID restrictions that we have. So getting into the school and talking to them about using the school as a shelter as appropriate. We don't want to displace students in an emergency. We want to maintain that routine as best we can, but when push comes to shove, how to have that, how to set those expectations and let them know, hey, if we need access to the school for a shelter, how would they like us to have that conversation? Who would they like us to go through? And if we need to lean on the Office of Emergency Services to help facilitate that conversation, that's fine too. I just, prepare them for that eventuality in case it's ever needed.
Andrew, can you provide any information to me that we could post on like the community Facebook page and do some outreach? And then I also wanted to make sure too that Prash Hall is on your radar, because I think we just need to finalize that contract, that use agreement contract. It was pretty far in the process at some point. I think it was just insurance stuff.
Okay. Probably from our end, needing proof of insurance from our side.
I can't remember. I can't remember what the logistics were, but I think it wasn't too terribly problematic.
Sure.
Can you talk briefly just about what it means to be a volunteer? What does it entail?
Sure. So volunteering with the Red Cross, the best way to describe it is you can do as little or as much as you would like to do, because we realize that as a volunteer organization, giving up your time is incredibly important, and we're grateful for it, and you're making a donation of your time. So for some folks, all they may have is, an hour a month, and that's absolutely okay. It becomes my job to help find the appropriate activity that fits your time available. The biggest need we have right now are for disaster action team members. Those are the volunteers that get the initial phone call that something has happened and your neighbors need help. The training takes about 9 hours. It's self-paced and online, which has been a struggle. I don't think people don't want to sit in front of a computer for that long. So I acknowledge it. I'm now able to do in-person training, so we can knock that out in about 2 days. The in-person classes take a little bit longer. When you are done with the training, you are then asked to make yourself available for short blocks of time, usually about 6 hours. And unlike a large fire department, you're sitting in a ready room waiting for the bell to go off. The truth is, just go about your everyday life. And if that bad thing were to happen, be it a house fire, a car through somebody's living room, whatever it is that could trigger a response from the Red Cross, because you made yourself available for 6 hours, you'd be one of the first people that we would call. And you always have the ability to say no. That's something that I like to remind my volunteers. The expectation is if you've said yes, then great. We'll call you and we hope that you're ready to go, but life happens. Like I know that I indicated I was ready to go, but I've got to go pick up my kids. That's absolutely okay. We have 2 hours from the call from our partners, either in the fire department or OES, to get on scene. So we can work around your life. But being on call is about 6 hours at a time. And we also have a need for shelter workers. That's about 6 hours of again, self-paced online training. And the initial commitment of time isn't as much because there isn't a shelter open right now. We don't need shelter workers staffing shelters at this current moment in California. But once there is a need, the ask is a little longer. Whereas a disaster action team response could last anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. A shelter shift is about 12 hours, and we're asking our volunteers to commit to at least 3 shifts. So 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 12 hours back on again. The reason being is that provides consistency to those folks staying in our shelter. They get to see the same people. If one of our shelter clients asks us to help them remember to take their medicine, and they let one of our volunteers know, and that person isn't there the next day, it's caused a couple of concerns, especially with my shelter supervisor, who has to call down all of her volunteers and start building out the shelter shifts. Not having that consistency has been an issue in the past. So we're asking shelter workers to be willing to commit to 3 days. So about a weekend. So that's something that you feel you can do. That'd be great. We have everything from logistics volunteers, people who are willing to learn how to drive our emergency response vehicle. We now officially have an emergency response vehicle within Humboldt County again. We lost it for a little while, and we have a brand new one. So it's currently in McKinleyville Community Service District. They're locked up in their lot. They were gracious enough to give us space. And it has a capacity of 4,000 pounds, and we're able to do meal delivery out of that. We can do the distribution of emergency supplies out of that. We just need people willing to learn how to drive it. It's a big box truck, so you don't even need a commercial driver's license for it. And then if you're good at backing up trailers, we could really use some folks who are really comfortable backing trailers up. Our logistics team's a little thin right now. Preparedness educators is the next big thing that I have, and those are folks who are willing to learn the skills and have the conversations and be comfortable with with preparedness to the point where they could in turn have those conversations with their neighbors. So what goes into a preparedness kit? How many supplies should you have on hand to sustain yourself? It's 3 days. Honestly, I usually would recommend more, but on a standard 3 days. We have 5 preparedness programs that we offer, everything from the home fire campaign, which is installing free smoke detectors, to Prepare with Pedro, which is for grades K to 2, the pillowcase program, which is gear age 3 to 5. And I currently have 0 preparedness educators. I have a couple of volunteers who are used to providing those services, but they're also disaster action team responders. They're also shelter workers. They're also logistics folks. And I've asked them to really focus on getting us ready for disaster response. And those volunteers who were interested in solely preparedness activities, unfortunately, have moved out of the program, or because of COVID, are no longer with us. So, yeah, I really, I inherited it. And in all transparency, a lot of our preparedness work was done by AmeriCorps folks. And when we switched from one region to the other region, we lost the contract to the AmeriCorps folks. So that really set the program back a little bit as well. So I just would rather be transparent with everybody. So yeah, that's that, sheltering, logistics, and preparedness. Those are the things that we really need right now.
Great. If you can get Mandy or myself some information, the Safety Commission would definitely run a recruiting campaign for you on social media.
I'd appreciate it. I actually have those documents on hand, so I can send them to you really quick.
Andrew, are you guys working with HSU students at all to do any of this?
Actually, yes, we are going to be attending the HSU volunteer fair that they're hosting. We were supposed to have a table at that, and one of our professionally trained recruiters will actually be there from Sacramento. So I'm excited about getting to work with her, but we plan on being there. The problem that I've struggled with is I like working with I like working with college students. Consistency has been really difficult. Right around midterms, they become college students again, and getting them to do the disaster response activity isn't their life isn't as conducive. And admittedly be willing to eat my words if this is incorrect, because that means there are folks willing to participate with us.
Just wondering, with the new Cal Poly status, I've been talking with them about, connecting students with the volunteer fire departments, because they're going to have the fire sciences, and they have the wildland programs and forestry and stuff. And they were really excited about some of the direction that some of their programming is going, and some of the flexibility to kind of work in some of that, hands-on training and making it more of a requirement. Because I know that they can require that they do certain levels of internships and stuff too. And it could be something that could be written into one of these new systems, with like fire sciences or, whatever, because that's part of what we're moving into with all of this new fire behavior is also community response and preparedness and all of it. So it could be something that could be talked with the professors about.
Absolutely. What I'll do is I'll send an email to you after this and see if you can kind of guide me on what next steps to take. So I appreciate it, and I'll look back into it.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Yeah, nothing else? Any questions?
About the new College Corps program. It was in the Lost Coast Outpost. It's just, I'm not sure if it is specific to specific industries, but they're actually paying college students to volunteer. You finish your time, and there's a 2-year program right now that they actually get paid for it. So
that would be great. So there's that, and then one of our local high schools has a program that's preparing students for the workforce through volunteer opportunities. And I think the course that you mentioned would be excellent. If someone would like to email me with how to get in contact with them, I will absolutely follow up and see if we can do that. So I appreciate all the insight.
Okay, sorry, my feed died for a minute there. I just got back on. All right.
Jason, this is Lynn Glenn. I had a question for Andrew.
Oh, go ahead, Lynn. Lynn is with CERT team, right?
Yes. Hi, Lynn.
Yes. Hi. So I have a question. It sounds like there are some pre-identified shelter locations in Blue Lake and maybe they're in the Rancheria and in this area. And I'm wondering what those pre-identified ones, I take it you need to have contacts with them, what those locations are.
So one of the locations is the elementary school, one is the Grange, and we're working on Crash Hall, the one that was mentioned earlier. I don't have an agreement in place for that, but can start taking steps to pick up where that was left off. And if it's the insurance, we can address it. I know Blue Lake Rancheria does have a location identified as a shelter. So those are the four sites that I'm aware of in your area.
So the school does have a contract and the Rancheria does also.
They do. I believe the elementary does. I would like to revisit it because I believe that when it was initially done, it was done for a different part of the building than what they would like us to use at this point. But I haven't had a chance to look into that yet.
Great, thank you.
Are there any more questions for Andrew from the public? All right, well, thank you for taking the time and short notice to get here.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
All right, well, we'll be in touch. And thank you. We'll move on to item 7, the Go Slow, Watch the Road campaign. In the implementation of a Blue Lake specific initiative.
Yeah, so this was presented at your last meeting. And I think the direction that we decided to go was to kind of think about opportunities for an implementation of a Blue Lake specific program that could be kind of spread out through the year or at least several months. We talked about, different pop-up campaigns, kind of like what we have right now with the signage and things, putting pop-up crosswalks or signage at different intersections or different things. So I don't know if the commission had really thought about that or had any ideas of or had any additional feedback on things that they thought might be effective, or I think we kind of left it for hoping you guys would kind of run with it a bit.
Definitely. I mean, I thought it was an idea that we were all in favor of. We just need to, I think, collaborate on it.
And maybe you guys want to put together a 2-man team similar to what you've done with Observe and Report and the surveillance, so that you can, get into a more diverse dialogue without waiting for these meetings. But, I'd be happy to work with you. I know the school is interested. We have our partners at Safe Routes to School and in the county. And so there's a lot of opportunity, but I think it would be great to have a couple of representatives from public safety to kind of help, join that team and move some efforts along.
I would be on a team with someone to talk about this. I didn't come up with any ideas. I wanted to think about it more than I did, but I keep thinking about local artists, like being involved too.
That was I like that idea too.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good idea.
Is there anybody who would like to form a subcommittee on this with Sarah? I
And
can.
it's fine just to have one too. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not going to make you do it all by yourself, Sarah, but it'd be good to have a representative so we kind of, keep some stuff moving forward.
Yeah, and I can talk to like other people in the community to gather ideas.
Sure.
So I can work on it.
Definitely.
Great.
All right.
Okay, I have Sarah. We'll work together, get some stuff going.
Yeah, okay. And I can contact you just to ask some initial questions more. I'll ask you more.
Yes, that'd be great. I'm gonna try and mute myself as much as possible. Otherwise, you guys are gonna hear the vacuum cleaner in the background.
Okay, well, let's keep rolling with that. We'll put that on for next week's agenda also, to revisit and see what we've come up with. We'll move on to community wildfire protection plan discussion. I went on and printed the document and I read through most of it. It looks good. Did anybody else have any thoughts on this county document? Or the I guess the plan? Trying to find it at the moment.
I didn't get a chance to read it.
So I think one of the biggest takeaways is that there is a lot of work going into this. There is a lot of planning and thought going into wildfire protection. There's a lot of dialogue going on between the timberlands and CAL FIRE and the states and the feds and the counties and the cities. No one has all the answers, obviously, and I think every year we learn something more about wildfire that we did not anticipate even the year before. We're seeing wildfires are changing exponentially every year. So the city is part of the dialogue and is part of the planning. Are we fully prepared for a wildfire? Absolutely not. Do we have some good foundational plans in place and logistical capacity? Yes. It's kind of an all disaster preparedness type of foundation. It's not necessarily specific to wildfire, but we definitely do participate and think a lot about our emergency plan and evacuation routes and looking at resources. The city is doing a lot of hardening of infrastructure. We are hoping to get a grant. We've been working with Cal OES and FEMA for the last year and a half to get new water tanks. We have old redwood water tanks right in the WUI that are concerning. So, we're looking at hardening that infrastructure. I believe we will be getting that funding. That's about $1.6 million to replace that infrastructure. We're looking at, evacuation routes. We regularly meet with our timberlands partners on different issues. Like I said, are we fully prepared? Absolutely not, but it's an ongoing learning lesson. Each year we learn something new and we get better at it, but it really is incumbent also on the community to educate themselves as well. Ultimately we're a very small community and very limited in resources. So the more, individuals can be resilient, the better. So I think, with some of these issues, there's very much like the government side, but there's also the preparedness and the ongoing education of the community side as well. That's probably even more important. So I think the plan is as good as, any document that you're going to pull off the shelf. It's really just, do we have the capacity to exercise when the need arises? So, but I wanted you guys to see that the city is part of these efforts. We do work with our partners. We are thinking about preparedness, and we do have some of those internal capacities. So,
Okay, and it kind of ties into our evacuation plan also. I mean, do we know? Does the community know where they're supposed to go if we have to get out? I mean, there's a few different directions we could go, but Lynn had pointed out to me, in the same place on the Humboldt on the county's page, the evacuation plan is kind of set up in zones, and it's it's a little confusing, and there's not a lot of information for people that don't have computers either. So I didn't know if you wanted to speak on this, Lynn, because you had brought up some good points, if you're still with us.
Yeah, we just had heard, I gotten an email about the Office of Emergency Services plan. They're contracting with, I can't remember the name of the organization, but I think they probably sell this program and planning to other counties as well. But Blue Lake has a zone, and I think the message that they were sending was everyone should log in. You can log your address in and get your evacuation number. You should remember that number, and then you should do all these things. And it's a little confusing because, of course, if there is an evacuation, people will be pretty stressed. So it just seems like a good thing to be aware of and maybe to talk about at the Public Safety Commission, kind of how Blue Lake fits into the county's plan. I'd like to hear from the sheriff how they expect it to work and maybe how it works in other areas. And then as Jason was saying, it would be good if people understood where they needed to go. But of course, I think that will probably be specific to whatever emergency would cause an evacuation. But it just seems like it's something that would be good to be talking about and be aware of here in Blue Lake.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to kind of go through this document and interpret it for people who live in Blue Lake, like make it really clear what our zone is. I don't know what the zone is, but I get it. That's important information because in all the fires, they talk about the evacuation zones. And if you don't know how, right. So should we make an effort to do that and kind of publicize some information?
Our zone is HUM EO48, just for your information. But that's, I think these are two separate things. This is the wildfire plan you're talking about. I don't have that in front of me. And this is a different system. I assume it would plug into that plan as well, Jason. You know, you can see both, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Andrew, I saw you waving.
Yeah. The system's called Zone Haven, and it's either EO48 or EO49, depending on your address. On the other side of the road, it is, and by the road I mean 299. It is E046.
Okay.
So, and a lot of that's going to be probably a little bit too much information initially for a lot of folks, because if you don't, those are just numbers. They don't mean a whole lot to folks. But getting into Zone Haven and registering for those alerts are incredibly important.
Okay. I don't ever remember seeing anything about that. That's new information to me, so that's good. It seems like that's something we should try and publicize to get everybody signed up for that.
Yeah, I was saying to Jason, it'd be great if the sheriff could do a report on that to the Public Safety Commission, and we could attend that meeting and hear about it and get more better understanding of what the Zone Haven system is.
And I think it's
Definitely.
important to know, all disasters are different. And the best laid plan, usually goes out the window immediately when a disaster happens, and then you piece things together from your arsenal of knowledge. So, there's never going to be a time where everything goes according to plan perfect, because that's just not how disasters work, and it's not how people respond. And the biggest part of disaster preparedness is making sure that you have internal capacity and resources to make good decisions at the time that you need to. And we all know that there will be those that don't. And I think rather than tying people back to such specific things like, if there's a disaster, I'm going to EO46, that's also almost like, in my mind, those specifics can also cause a lot of problems as well, because disasters are very fluid and you just really don't know You know, a wildfire can do a lot of things. It can, you know, it can start spot fires in other locations. It can bring down, you know, landslides. It can cut off infrastructure, you know, and all of those, you know, well thought out evacuation plans. If it was just, you know, a straight fire, like might be okay, but now all of these secondary things have happened. And so, and from what I've learned through disaster preparedness and training through the years is really, you know, giving people as much capacity to make good decisions, and be fluid in their response is what's really critical. And maybe I'm totally saying that wrong, and Andrew probably could say it much better, but I get nervous about tying people to such specific types of actions when we really need them to make, you know, like I said, have the capacity to make good decisions in the moment.
Yeah, really quickly, it's one the question earlier about where our shelters are located. I get very anxious about giving that information out. It's not because I don't want folks to not know. The concern that I have, if everyone knows, you know, ABC Elementary School is our shelter, and everyone gravitates that way, but that place was damaged by the earthquake or is threatened by the wildfire, we're training people to move into a place that threatens them. And so really the best thing to know is where to get that information. You know, where are the official sources, you know, Office of Emergency Services, your local fire department. And if you come to the Red Cross, we are just going to parrot what those lead agencies are going to say. So if you come to us, you're going to get the same information, maybe a little bit delayed because we're waiting for them to publish it. The other thing is to have a plan, and that plan can be as simple as I'm grabbing my family, to include my four-legged, my scaled, and my feathered family members, and we are going to go to grandma's house. Whatever that is, have that conversation with the people that you are going to, because if the plan isn't to come to Red Cross shelter, which is fine, just have that conversation with them before you show up on their doorsteps, and then invite us out preemptively. We'll have a conversation when appropriate, and do a formal preparedness class or preparedness course if you'd like me to. I have no problem coming out and doing that. We can also do it over Zoom at a later date.
Hey, Mandy, it's Kevin from the Sheriff's Office. I just wanted to jump in on this real quick. I think maybe at your meeting next month, it might be good to invite Ryan Derby from Office of Emergency Services to come speak to the group here and to the public regarding the Zone Haven program. And what you said is 100% correct. Each emergency is unique and it's very fluid. One of the things that Zone Haven does is it identifies, you know, certain areas to be evacuated ahead of time. It's like having your bags packed before you need them and being prepared for an emergency, because what it allows first responders to do is, you know, whoever's the incident commander that needs an area evacuated, they can say, for example, I need H047 evacuated. And then all the first responders responding to the scene can look at the program and know exactly what zone they're talking about and where exactly we need to set up roadblocks at, and where we need to, you know, what residents we need to start knocking on doors with. So even if you don't register for the system or don't have access to the internet, because I mean, all those things are fragile, they can go down at a moment's notice. All the other mechanisms that we have in place to start evacuations will still take place, like, you know, having a deputy come to your door and knock on it and say, hey, you got to get going here. This area is being evacuated. So, but it probably would be a good thing. I know the Sheriff's Office did put out a press release when we first implemented this program. That's a number of months ago now, I think. But I can also reach out to Ryan and ask him if he'd be willing to just do a short presentation and kind of answer some of the questions that I'm hearing here tonight that I don't even have the answer to necessarily.
Thanks, Kevin. That would be great. Be nice to have Ryan come and he can kind of give an overview too of OES and what they do and kind of the behind the scenes. You know, there's a lot going on at OES and a lot of capacity building. So I think he would be a really good presenter.
Yeah. I'll bring it up to him. We'll see what his availability is.
Thank you.
Okay. That sounds good. Kind of lost We're still on wildfire protection plan, correct? Okay. So Mandy highlighted some of the bigger points of that we needed to take from that. So if you get a chance to read that document, it's like 20 pages or something like that. Was there anything else you wanted us to do with that? I do like the idea of publicizing a little bit more, but like we don't, like you said, it's flu. We can't really give them specific information till we know the problem. So.
Well, and I think the preparedness is always great. I mean, I think that's the most critical component. So, as we get closer to wildfire season, I think we could do some more PSAs on preparedness and outreach. I think that's great. That's definitely, and a critical component to all of it. Like I said, I just get a little bit worried about drilling down so specific that we lose our capacity to pivot if we need to. So.
Okay.
Okay.
And I like the idea of Andrew doing some trainings, maybe for our annual meeting or something. Have just a little town hall or something. We'll keep that in mind.
I'm taking notes right now. What does the O stand for in ES, Emergency Services?
Office of Emergency Services.
Okay, thanks.
It's I believe it's Cal OES, but. All right, well, let's move on to public safety work plan discussion, which we've pretty much been doing. A lot of this is on our work plan already. So I don't have it in front of me. Did everybody get a copy of the work plan?
I don't have it in front of me, but I have the minutes from last, like I have the topics in front of me from the minutes from last month.
Okay. I don't have mine with me right now. I can't find it. But basically, I mean, we've kind of been plugging away on it as we go. I'm not sure if there's any areas that anybody would like to work on. We were going to do a community outreach this week, but there's been a lot going on. They didn't have the staff to really do the door hangers this month, so we didn't get those out. We'll try for that next month, and then invite a specific community to our meeting.
Yeah, I apologize for that. We had a bit of a COVID blip here at the city with our huge staff. It only takes a couple, and so we were behind and couldn't do door hangers.
Okay. Yeah.
But luckily, we got all your water meters read, so you'll get your water bill.
Well, let's shoot for next time on that too. We'll see what we'll get an invitation out.
Last meeting, we talked about public safety brochure update. And like turning it into, I actually didn't get a chance to look at the actual brochure, but we talked about turning it into a digital version, or PDF.
Yeah, we did talk about updating that and kind of moving away from a printed brochure and doing something that's a little bit more relevant to how people access information these days. So that'll be a little bit of a longer term objective, but we are trying to build some of our internal capacity for our website and social media. So Emily, who's our economic development planner, is a kind of a techie whiz. And so she's really helping us move forward some initiatives, making some of that information easier. We're using QR codes a lot right now so that we can kind of limit the amount of information, but give people the access to full documents in an easier mechanism. So we'll be trying to kind of synthesize some of that so it's just easier to access and make sure that the information is still relevant. It's just going to take us a little bit of time. We just don't have a lot of staff. So even the little things like that still take us a while to, bring it all back around. So.
Is that something the city's going to take on, is updating that brochure, or is that something you want us to like have a committee to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can probably do it fairly quickly in-house. I think the brochure can be translated to more of a, like an online type accessible document. Honestly, I need to see if I can find the files because I don't know if we even had the electronic version when that was originally done, but.
No, I asked, I believe it was Kit and Lynn that were working on it. And I
Yeah,
asked them, I don't think they have it electronically anymore either.
yeah, I don't know if we ever received it electronically. So, but it's not something that would be difficult to replicate. It's like I said, and I think we'd want to look at it and see if we can do it in a manner that's a little bit more accessible through, different mechanisms of information dissemination. So I'm going to kind of dim myself here. I'll keep you guys going so we don't lose your meeting, but I'm going to hop over to the Planning Commission if that's okay.
Okay. Well, that'll be fine.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the agency check-in with the Humboldt County Sheriff. I think Kevin Miller is here with us tonight.
I am. Thank you. I'm going to keep my video off just because I'm sitting here in my patrol car and with my camera on, you can't really see me. It just looks creepy. So anyways, that's why my video is off tonight. Let's go over the January stats for Blue Lake and the areas directly around it. It looks like we had 186 calls for service. There were 19 reports taken, 4 arrests made. It's a split between the felony and misdemeanor investigations. There were 7 of each. Then we had 2 assaults, 6 burglaries, either vehicle or building. 2 vandalisms, 1 theft, a petty theft, 7 disturbances, 7 alarm calls, 5 pedestrian checks, 4 suspicious circumstances calls, 6 unwanted subjects or illegal camp calls. And then we conducted 52 traffic stops or vehicle investigations and 86 miscellaneous calls for service. And as I always say, that's pretty much that can be just about anything.
Is this for the month?
What's that?
This is for the month?
This is the month of January. Sorry.
Oh, wow, you did 56 stops on vehicles? That seems like a lot.
52. Well, it's traffic
52.
stops or vehicle investigations. So that's where they find a vehicle parked off to the side of the road, usually in an unusual spot, and they'll stop and check on it. So, yeah, that's the benefits of having a lot of younger deputies, newer deputies out there. They like to go hunt those things down and find them and stuff. So, overall, it looks like most of the statistics are actually down from the month of December. So that's good. And that looks like everything I'm seeing here on the stat report that was provided to me. Any questions?
I'm looking through. I don't see anybody with hands up.
I have a question. Where do we find those stats again if we want to see them?
So these ones are prepared by my administrative secretary and she sends them to me. But you can also go on to our website for the sheriff's office and you can pull up the data there. It's going to look slightly different than what I'm looking at because I kind of got like a cheat sheet in front of me. But also these stats that I'm reading to you are provided to Mandy as well. So she has access to them also.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, are there any questions for the sheriff from the public or anybody else? Okay, you're getting off easy.
All right. Well, it's good. Good night. So thank you, everybody. And I
All
will
right.
follow up with Ryan Derby regarding coming and speaking to folks about Zone Haven. So I think that'd be a good thing. So
All
thank
right,
you.
yeah, definitely. Thank you. All right, I don't believe we have the fire chief here tonight. There's really not a lot to report with that. Things are going great at the fire department. They've got a handful of new recruits. We're still taking recruits if anybody's interested. I believe we're up to 12 volunteers, and we would like to be more, around 15, 18. So if you know anybody that would love to, give up some time, it really doesn't take much more than, showing up at the meetings and doing what you can. So, let's see. Do we have Summer here tonight for liaison? We can move to item 11.
Oh. Just so you guys know, Summer has resigned.
Oh, okay.
She's going to be moving, so she has resigned her position.
Okay, so we don't have a liaison or report from staff tonight. Okay. We will then move on to future agenda items. I have Ryan Derby from OES. Continue with the work plan. And then a report from Sarah's subcommittee on the Watch the Road campaign. And then we'll revisit the not revisit, but the community engagement. So we'll have that go this week also. That's coming up, hopefully, if we can get the door hangers out and invite people. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about next week? Okay, is there any
Good. There's a
Next week?
hand.
Or next month?
or for next month? I'm sorry. I see Brian.
I had another meeting coming up.
I see Brian has his hand up.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Hey, this is my first time listening to you guys, and thank you for everything you've been doing, cameras and community support. I live on 2nd and H, and people are speeding like crazy up the street now, and the community would like stop signs put in. How do we go about doing something like that?
I believe you just need to speak to City Hall and put in a request.
Brian, if you want to get a hold of me this week, I'd be happy to look at that. We are looking at locations for additional stop signs. I could talk with you further about that process.
Okay, cool. Yeah, with the preschool being here, and it's just a lot of traffic.
Yeah, I get it. We're looking at what is it? I Street is another major thoroughfare and stuff too. So we've got a few that we're looking at to add additional stop signs. We usually just have to come up with some justification, but our engineer's been pretty good about finding those for us. So
Yeah, sounds like a plan. That's all I had. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the input. All right. Well, if there's no other comments or questions, then we can make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Julia makes the motion and I will second.
Everybody have a good night.
All right, you too. Thank you for coming. All right, bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.